Real readers don't read and just answer the questions at the end, right? Real readers really interact with the text that they're reading. So that's what you do, okay? And while we're doing this today, we're going to do some of that, because sometimes you can't help but notice when you get lost, or notice a new learning, or sometimes something is so interesting you have to leave your reaction. But we're really going to focus on summarizing today. That's our new strategy that we're going to work on. So summarizing is when you read what's there, and then in your own words, you restate it. But it's not just a restatement. You've got to shrink it down. You've got to keep it brief. But this kind of goes with determining importance. We talked for just a little bit about determining importance a couple weeks ago. Do you remember when we did the chart where we said what the author thinks is important and what I find interesting? Do you remember doing that chart? I hope. Yes? Okay. This is kind of where that comes into play, because when we're summarizing, we're only interested in what the author thinks is important. We have to be able to distinguish between what I find interesting and what the author is really trying to tell me. Okay? Because if I really go with what I find interesting, I'm not really summarizing. Okay? So I'm doing the reactions, which is important. So you got to know what you find interesting, but you really, when we're summarizing, got to focus on the author. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to read Wildcats. I'm going to model at the beginning. And I'm going to use a specific strategy called bracketing. So you'll notice up here, I put the article, I blew it up a little bit. You don't have to read it up here. You're going to read it in your book. But the reason I did this is I'm going to use brackets, which are those little things out to the side. And I'm going to be writing little, we might call them gist statements. Just little statements that sort of summarize each section. In other words, I'm not going to read the whole article and try to write a summary, because that's really hard. And if you're going to do that, you really got to do all these little things before you get to that. So we're going to kind of summarize each section as we go with these little brackets. What I want you to do is, while I'm bracketing up here and writing my little gist statements to the side, you're going to need to put them on a Post-it note. That's why you have the Post-it notes. And then you can put that Post-it note with that piece of text. Does that make sense? Okay, so we need to be on page 18. Not 18, 20, sorry. We need to be on page 20. So our mind is activated, our schema is activated. We're on the page with cats, so when we're reading, we're thinking about wildcats. Has anybody ever actually seen a wildcat outside of the zoo or any place like that, like one of these cats out in the wild? Okay? So you guys really have some schema for it. I don't think I ever really have seen one, because I've always lived in town. I've never lived out in the country.
So you've voiced to, like, mountains and stuff, have you?
Yeah, I have. And I've actually hiked through North Carolina and stuff, but we didn't see any mountain lions or any bobcats or anything. All right, so.
Oh, I've seen a bobcat.
I've seen bobcats.
Me too.
All right, page 20. You're reading along as I'm reading out loud, and then I'm going to stop and summarize. All right? What comes to mind when you hear the words wild cats? Do you picture golden lions on the plains of Africa? Or tigers slinking through jungles in Asia? Maybe you should start thinking closer to home, possibly even your own front yard. As I look up, I see a lot of people that aren't really reading. They're just kind of listening. I'm on the second paragraph. Here are a few examples. A man in Pennsylvania recently watched a bobcat creep across his driveway. A hiker in Colorado felt something watching her. She turned around and found herself staring into the eyes of a mountain lion. Stories like these are becoming more common. That's because people are moving into areas that once were wilderness. This has brought people into contact with North America's most common wildcats: mountain lions, bobcats, and lynx. All right, so as I read that, I'm going to bracket this whole first section. Introductory sections usually don't have a lot of new information in them. They're mostly going to be just that, introduction. Okay, and then the real information is going to come down here. So I think I'll probably have more gist statements down here. But I did pick up something up here, and so I'm going to write it up here, and you're going to want to write it on a Post-it note. What I got out of that is that there are big cats in the U.S. And that people are moving into their habitats. And habitats is a word that we know from science. And then you can stick it, what I usually do with those is I just stick them on top of the text I already read. Because there's not really room for you to stick it in the margin like I did. You don't really have a margin on yours. So you can take that Post-it note after you're done and you can stick it on top of the text. What I want you to notice here, I didn't leave out, I didn't put in any of the stuff about the plains of Africa or the tigers in the jungle, and I really didn't even talk about the two stories that they gave. I had to really focus on what is he trying to tell me? What is the author trying to tell me? He's not trying to tell me about lions in Africa. He's trying to tell me that there are wild cats, there are big cats in America, and that people are invading their habitats. And I kind of have a feeling that I'm going to run into that stuff again as I move on. Is everybody with me? Looking to make sure that we are all together. So, what's this next thing here, this blue thing, these blue words? What is that, Claire?
Is it a subheading?
A subheading, yeah. A subheading. Less land for lions. What do we notice? Is that straightforward? Is that standard, or is it inferential?
Inferential.
I think that one's inferential. But what do we think we're going to be reading about? What do we infer we're going to read about in this section? Tell your partner. Tell your partner.
Like how the lions were moving into their habitats. So like they're like trying to move. They're not going extinct. They're just like really.
All right, hands up.
Like, they don't have a lot.
Back with me. Back with me. All right, so what do we think we're going to be reading about? Brenda, what do you think we're going to be reading about?
Lions getting pushed off their land and people taking it.
So what in that subtitle gave you that? That subheading gave you that?
Less land for lions.
So the less land. And then what do they do along with that? Less land for lions?
Alliteration.
That alliteration again, that less land for lions. So they were able to do, the next one's killer cats. They're able to use alliteration and really give us what we're going to read about. And it's important to be thinking about what's coming up, because as we're reading, we know kind of what the main point is supposed to be. So we know if we're on target or not. All right, less land for lions. Mountain lions, make sure your eyes are on the paper. Mountain lions once roamed much of the United States. That's not the case today. People started moving closer and closer to where the cats lived. Towns and farms popped up everywhere. That meant trouble for the cats. Farmers were not happy to share their land with the mountain lions. The cats often preyed on the farmers' livestock, such as cows and sheep. As a result, farmers killed the cats whenever they could. Hunters also prized the beautiful animals and shot many for sport. Have I gotten enough information, do you think, to write a short little gist statement out of those two paragraphs? I think that I have. I think that there is something specific that I wanted to get out of there, and that is, I'm just going to write a little one here, that people are killing the lions because the lions are killing their animals. Okay, so we're talking about the mountain lions here. People kill, and I'm going to abbreviate mountain, MTN, so I don't have to write the long one. People, just write this for now, Kenny. People kill mountain lions because the lions kill their animals. And that seems kind of like a lot of words to write, but when you really look at all of this that we've read, it's a lot fewer words than what's there. So it is briefer than what they wrote. Sometimes, though, people do try to summarize and they end up writing more than the original. So you got to be really careful making sure you're brief in your statements. What I want you to do is you're going to read these three paragraphs with your shoulder partner. One of you is going to, or you read them out loud together, go back and forth paragraph by paragraph, and then I want you to come up with a gist statement. One of these little statements, just for that one section. Okay? Thumbs up if we're together. Okay, I'm going to be kind of moving around in between you a little bit. Person A, read the first paragraph, then person B, then person A. So person A gets a little bit more work this time. Okay? All right, go.
Okay, when the cat falls
Do you think that bit about the twig should be put in there All right. Let me have everybody's attention back up this way. Let me see your brains. I know I have your brains, but I have your eyes. So if you're still finishing the last few words of your sentence, do that. But I'm going to ask for a few people to share out what they thought the big idea of this was. So Kiera, if you'll read what you and William came up with.
Mountain lions are very good hunters.
Okay, does everybody agree that that's part of it? I noticed a lot of people have that one. Some people have more than that, but I think that that's definitely one of the big ideas there. Jordan, what do you guys have?
Mountain lions attack prey and are great hunters and try to hide their prey when they can't finish it.
So they try to hide it if they can't finish it. Sierra, what do you guys have?
Mountain lions have a lot of food to eat, but they will hide the rest for later that they do not eat.
So you guys kind of have the same thing, just worded differently. Okay, I agree with that. All right, Courtney, read really loud. What you guys have?
Mountain lions are good hunters, but they need trees which kill them. They need the trees.
Oh, so they talked about the trees. Why do they need the trees?
To cover their leftovers.
To cover their food. So you talked about the trees, but not the covering of the food. Okay, I could see that. I think that you might want to get in there that they need the trees to cover their food. One last one.
Mountain lions are very good hunters and are very smart hunters. They're just smart in the way they do it.
So the one thing that we all definitely agree on is that they're good hunters, right? I think that that's a big idea to pull out there. Let me ask you this question. Nobody has said anything about the twig. The poor mountain lion that put the twig over his food to try to hide it. Why didn't you include that? Why was that left out, Will?
Because it wasn't a big idea, it was like a detail. And also what I put was cats are very good hunters.
Just cats in general are very good hunters. And it did kind of allude to that. But yeah, that is just a detail. The bit about the twig, it's interesting. And it's put in there to keep you as a reader interested in what they're saying. But when we're really trying to pick out what is the author's main point, that's not it. One other one, a discussion that I had with one team about the cat's claws and how they can retract their claws just like your house cat can. Why isn't that in the main idea, though? Kenny?
Because that's a detail. That's what they can do. And all cats can do. Almost all cats can do.
Yeah. And it's the same kind of thing. It's not what all 3 paragraphs are really about. All 3 paragraphs are really about they're good hunters, but they're running out of space, and they need to hide their food, and they're running out of space to hide it, basically. Yeah.
Our main idea was that lions can hunt anything, and if it is too big for one meal, they will cover it with anything.
Okay, so you got that same thing about covering it. And they'll eat anything. You put that in. That's actually something I put in my just statement when I wrote mine. So they'll eat anything. I put it there twice. I had it here and up here.
Except poison dart frogs, so they won't eat that.
Probably not. All right, so here's your assignment. When you go back today, you're going to finish this article, or if you're more interested in Dr. Bugs or the Rocky or the Rock Stars, if you're more interested in those, you can begin to read one of those. But no matter which one you're reading, what I'm expecting to see are these statements written on Postit Notes inside your magazine. I don't have everybody's brain with me. Okay? I'm expecting to see these. You should have at least one per section. Sometimes, like this one, I had 2. But you need at least one per section, right? Stop and think about what it is, what is your big idea. Okay? Thumbs up if you're together with me, if we're all together.